4,000 Veldari warships tore through slipspace at Pluto's orbit. Their red engine glares the only light in the void.
Formation compact. Signal the fleet. We will remind these primates why the hegemony does not ask twice.
The Lord Marshal's ultimatum lanced toward Earth. A cold demand for unconditional surrender within the hour.
Sensors confirm all 12 platforms in geosynchronous orbit. Lord Marshal, no power signatures. Cold and dark, exactly as intelligence reported.
Exactly. They were gutted in the televised ceremony. We watched the footage. Scrap. Now they float as civilian observation stations, telescopes and weather satellites. Pathetic.
Earth appeared in the main viewer, blue and cloud-flecked, its equatorial necklace of silent platforms like a forgotten ornament.
One moment, sir. Platform 3 just registered an energy flicker. Millijoule range, duration half a second. Probably background noise.
Or a fault in the sensors. We are the greatest fleet ever assembled. Do not trouble me with static.
Earth remained mute. The ultimatum echoed into static. No human voice rose to answer, and on the night side, in the vacuum-gripped silence, a single dormant weapon system sighed in its sleep, deep beneath the Sierra Nevada. Colonel Marcus Hale watched the Armada's trajectory on a wall of screens, his face expressionless.
Commence grid wake-up. Flash boot all cores and bring the primary capacitors to warm standby. Confirm receipt.
A silent alert pulsed through Earth's subsurface relays. Platform 3's core inhibitor released, and coolant pumps thrummed.
Lord Marshal, I'm picking up a power surge from the orbital ring. Multiple points, Platform 3 the brightest.
They're civilian stations. They draw baseline power for atmospheric sensors. Do not confuse maintenance activity with a threat.
On the unlit belly of Platform 5, a maintenance panel slid open. Cyan light spilled into the void.
Status on the remaining 11. I want simultaneous spin-up. We don't give them a clean timeline.
Sir, the energy curve is exponential. Platforms 5, 7, and 9 are joining. This is not sensor calibration.
Then it's a prearranged light show. The Terrans hope to frighten us with a power spike. They have no teeth.
A countdown appeared on Marcus's private console. 6 minutes. The Armada saw only dark hulls and a silent Earth.
Terran orbital grid reactivation sequence commenced. Time to full operational status. 6 minutes.
6 minutes? They are 6 hours from effective orbital engagement range. Pathetic attempt at intimidation.
Lord Marshal, the weapon arrays are deploying. All 12 platforms are rotating toward our approach vector.
Massive gun barrels extended from the supposedly civilian stations. Cyan capacitors charging along their lengths.
All platforms. Confirm target lock on the lead element. Await my signal.
Their power grid is pulling from terrestrial core taps. These are not observation instruments. They are weapons.
Weapons without crews, caged for a century. Even if they are armed, they lack fire control coordination.
On Earth, the grid's distributed AI cataloged every Veldari ship, triaged it, and assigned a firing solution.
Begin the countdown broadcast. Let them hear every second. Fear is a weapon too.
The 12 platforms completed their rotation. Cyan targeting beams flickered, invisible in the spectrum, and the clock ticked down. Weapon bay doors slid aside on all 12 platforms. Missile pods and railgun barrels extended, their cyan charge lights pulsing.
Lord Marshal, I've plotted their effective range. We'll cross into their kill envelope in under 2 minutes at this acceleration.
Automated systems cannot track a formation moving at these velocities. The old fire control algorithms are decades obsolete.
The Armada held formation, red engine flares bright, as targeting lasers from the platforms painted each hull with micrometer precision.
Sir, the platform sensors are tracking us. I am reading active target locks on over 80% of the fleet.
They have revealed their hand, Commander. Teeth without a jaw. The countdown is a psychological weapon, nothing more.
If we decelerate now, we might pull clear before full activation, but the window is less than 90 seconds.
We do not retreat. The hegemony advances. All ships maintain acceleration. We will pass through their empty threat.
The grid's countdown ticked to 5 minutes. The fleet's forward momentum cut the remaining distance by the second. The stenciled words, Civilian Observation Station 3, faced the void. A deadpan lie as the Armada drove deeper into the kill zone. Zyra magnified the optical feed. The stenciled label on Platform 3 was crisp, unblemished. The paint barely weathered.
That is not a dismantled weapon platform, Lord Marshal. The hull has never been breached. The label is a decoy.
Sloppy maintenance. Old hulls. Relic paint. That proves nothing.
I cross-referenced Terran corporate records. The platforms were sold as scrap to a firm called Anthony & Sons Orbital. The supposed dismantling crew was the same contractor. They never removed the weapons, they just painted over them.
Are you suggesting an interstellar fraud? That the treaty was a theatrical farce from the start?
Kale ordered an urgent hail to Earth, demanding an explanation. The open channel returned only static.
There is more. The decommissioning contract was sole source. No competitive bidding. Anthony & Sons was the only bidder.
Even if the hulls are intact, that does not mean the fire control system still works. The weapons could still be dead.
The countdown on the bridge's side display rolled past 4 minutes 30 seconds. The platforms continued to track. In the command bunker, a technician glanced up from her console. Sir, the Veldari are querying the platform hull labels.
Let them. It was designed to hold up under scrutiny just long enough. The important thing is the grid is awake. If they dig deeper, they'll find the inspection itinerary. Only stations 1, 4, and 9 were ever shown to the Concordium verifiers.
Aboard the flagship, Zyra's console flagged an intercepted civilian broadcast, a Terran news archive celebrating the treaty's anniversary. The screen filled with grainy footage of a platform detonating in a brilliant fireball, a crowd of diplomats applauding.
That platform is drifting in our gun sights right now. This footage is a lie. They must have used a decoy.
The treaty required a public ceremony. They gave one. They just never actually dismantled anything.
This entire assault was planned on a legal fiction. We are dying for a paragraph.
The countdown on the bridge console rolled past 3 minutes 50 seconds. The platform's cyan glow painted the bulkheads. 2 different truths collided in real time. The explosive evidence of the ceremony and the silent, electrified grid awaiting its trigger. On the flagship, Kale ordered the original treaty text, transmitted from archives. The document ghosted onto the main viewer. Article 4, Section 12. The Terran defense grid shall be decommissioned, with all platforms rendered non-functional. The work shall be contracted to the sole bidder, Anthony & Sons Orbital, under Concordium oversight, subsection C. Platforms may be redesignated as civilian observation stations upon completion of decommissioning.
Redesignated, not dismantled. The treaty never required destruction, only decommissioning and repurposing. They repurposed them back into weapons.
That language was meant for scientific equipment, not full-strike platforms. This is a semantic trap.
A trap we walked into. The entire Concordium verification was a pantomime. They never checked the other 9 platforms.
The treaty, once a symbol of peace, now lay on the screen like a legal shroud. The Terrans had followed every comma. The countdown dropped below 3 minutes. The grid's capacitors ran at 90%. Kale's 4 eyes fixed on the subclause that doomed his fleet. The room smelled of scorched logic. Zyra pulled up the Terran corporate registry from decades-old public archives. The ownership structure was a single name.
Lord Marshal Anthony of Anthony & Sons Orbital was the brother-in-law of the Terran defense minister who signed the treaty.
Nepotism. The treaty's architect placed his own family in charge of the fraud. The entire decommissioning was a family enterprise.
And the Concordium inspection itinerary just decrypted. Platforms 1, 4, and 9 were toured. The other 9 were never verified.
She threw the itinerary onto the main viewer. A ring of 12 dots appeared, 3 green, 9 a damning red.
They marched the verifiers through a sanitized loop. We never asked the right question because the question was written to be wrong.
The grid's countdown hit 2 minutes. The capacitors peaked, and the platform's weapon arms locked into final tracking.
There is no more time to parse legalese. If we do not act, those platforms will engage with full autonomy.
We came to test a dismantled gun, and instead we discovered it was loaded, aimed, and built by a single family's signature.
On the bridge, the crew stared at the clock. No orders came. The only sound was the hum of the grid, waiting.
1 minute to full activation. All weapon platforms report ready status.
Final weapon unlock. Authorize autonomous engagement protocol.
All ships, fire everything we have. Target the platforms, punch through.
4,000 ships unleashed their combined fury. Plasma bolts and kinetic rounds streaked toward the orbiting stations. The first salvo struck the platforms and vanished. A translucent cyan shell flickered around each station, absorbing the energy.
No effect. Their shields are total. The energy is being redirected into their capacitors.
Trigger the response protocol. They've crossed the hostile act threshold.
Hostile intent detected. Response protocol engaged. Time to engagement, 30 seconds.
The grid's sensors painted every ship, each one a pulsing red certainty, as the clock started its final descent. Kale watched the digits roll, his order sealing the fate of every ship in the Armada. The trap he had sprung was now his own.
Response protocol executing. All batteries fire.
12 cyan lances erupted from the stations. The beams crossed the void at light speed, too fast for the eye to track. The lead dreadnought came apart like wet paper. Hull plates vaporized, atmosphere vented in a silent scream. Chain detonations rippled through the fleet. Ammunition stores cooked off. Reactor cores breached in blinding white flashes.
Vanguard sections decimated. Over 300 ships gone in the first salvo. The grid is targeting with perfect coordination.
Evasive maneuvers. All ships break formation. Get out of the firing arcs.
They're scattering. Good. Makes them easier to tag.
Kale's voice cracked as another salvo erased a flank of destroyers. The main viewer dissolved into static and fire.
Engagement protocols initiated. All hostile vectors active. Continuing fire.
The surviving ships clawed for space, but the platform's fire arcs covered every escape vector. Each beam found a target.
Lord Marshal, I've calculated our retreat window. Only the rearguard ships have a viable path out. Our position is too deep.
Increase speed. We can outrun their effective range.
Their effective range is expanding. The platforms are adapting to our maneuvers. At current acceleration, we stay in the kill zone another 4 minutes.
The grid's second salvo carved through another cruiser squadron. The tactical display lit up with hundreds more lost contacts.
They're fragmenting. Back row ships could still reverse course if they break off now.
Sir, order the rear vessels to retreat immediately. At least some of the fleet can survive.
And I? Should I cower while they run?
The flagship shuddered as a glancing beam grazed the aft shields. Alarms screamed on the bridge.
Please, Lord Marshal. The hegemony will need its warriors. Let them learn from this.
Kale's jaw tightened, but no command came. The clock ticked past 4 minutes since the first weapon fired.
All rear elements, emergency retreat. Burn toward the outer system. Save what you can.
The retreat order flashed to the fleet's far units. Simultaneously, Kale's own comms went active on all Concordium frequencies.
Surrender packet transmitted. All hostile action ceases on our part. Acknowledge Terran grid.
Surrender not recognized. Hostile intent logged. Response protocol continues.
A cyan beam punched through the flagship's shields as the words faded. The bridge viewport shattered in a cascade of decompressed light.
Override. We've surrendered. Cease fire.
The ceiling collapsed. Zyra lunged, dragging Kale away from the falling armored plates. Blue blood streaked her uniform. The rear ships turned, their engines flaring red as they fled. The grid's targeting systems followed, but the forward elements were its priority.
Threat assessment updated. Remaining hostile vessels, 1,900. Fire solution recalculated.
The Armada's formation dissolved into isolated fireballs. Each minute erased hundreds more. The kill count rose beyond any Veldari's imagining. The grid's guns went silent as the last active contacts vanished. The engagement envelope registered 0 hostiles of the 4,000 ships that tore into Sol. 29 emerged in the outer system. 3,971 never returned. One battered cruiser, atmosphere leaking from a dozen rents, limped toward the blackness. Its designation, flagship escort. Inside, the corridors were a tomb. Fallen crew lay where the blast had thrown them. Flickering red emergency strips cast long, dancing shadows. Kale found a working console in a half-collapsed wardroom. A recording of the engagement log materialized, time-stamped to the second. The log scrolled. Weapon discharges, shield failures, the ignored surrender, and finally, the retreat vectors of 29 ships. The recording ended. The screen went dark. Kale did not move.
Lord Marshal, the damage control teams report we can make a jump. We should.
Leave me.
She hesitated, then retreated. The Lord Marshal sat alone, a living monument to the Armada that had died in 6 minutes and 31 seconds. The console flickered again. A new transmission materialized. No code, no formal header, just 4 words. Read the contract. Kale stared at the phrase. The simplest possible insult, yet it rendered everything else obsolete.
The treaty was upheld. Our observation stations tracked over 4,000 incoming objects, categorized them as navigation hazards, and eliminated the threat.
He didn't smile. He didn't need to. A news ticker ran across the briefing room screens. Terran Defense Grid never decommissioned. Treaty clause protects status. On the crippled cruiser, the same ticker scrolled. Kale read the words again, and the full weight of the fraud settled on his shoulders.
They didn't fire a single shot that our treaty hadn't already loaded.
29 ships, 1 phrase, and 4,000 graves written in the fine print. The Concordium would need to rule, but in Kale's trembling silence, the verdict was already delivered. The Concordium convened an emergency session. Representatives from 42 species filled the circular chamber, their murmurs a low thunder. The human delegation submitted a single exhibit, the Treaty of Brussels-Veldari, with the relevant subsection already highlighted. Post-mortem finding. The Terran Defense Grid was never dismantled, in direct violation of the spirit of the treaty. However, the letter of the contract allows for civilian redesignation of decommissioned stations. Therefore, no treaty breach occurred. The Terran representative pointed to the clause without expression, as if demonstrating a mathematical proof. The chamber erupted. Alien envoys from a dozen empires objected, but the holographic text remained immutable. The Concordium held no authority to penalize Earth. The treaty, a document of peace, had been fulfilled to the punctuation. The verdict was broadcast on all galactic channels. Earth had not fired an illegal shot. It had merely enforced a contract. The Veldari ambassador sat motionless, the cost of the invasion now a debt owed by his people alone. The case was closed. The grid remained, its legality now woven into galactic precedent. Within a single standard cycle, the Concordium's ruling reached every corner of the Veldari hegemony. The treaty signing footage played on endless loop, a ceremony that now condemned every official who had applauded. Kale was extracted from the limping cruiser, his wounds barely treated, and fitted with magnetic restraints. The military tribunal convened in secret. They required a single failure to absorb the shame of a nation.
That first energy flicker on Platform 3, If I had only ordered the fleet to halt, not mock it.
He did not argue. The charges were gross incompetence and criminal disregard for intelligence. None mentioned the loophole, the sentence, indefinite exile to a barren moon, all titles revoked, names struck from the annals. Before the guards dragged him out, they allowed him one last word to the recording drone.
Read the contract.
The cell door sealed. The grid's cyan eyes watched over Earth. The galaxy made note. Humanity plays for keeps, and the fine print is the deadliest weapon. Colonel Hale rode a maintenance shuttle to Platform 3, the hangar bay smelling of coolant and old metal. A graying engineer in grease-stained overalls offered him a cup from a battered thermos.
Your grandfather was on the original paint crew. He'd be proud you kept the reactor coils tuned.
The engineer nodded, her family's duty now 4 generations deep.
We keep them ready, so we never have to use them. That's the point.
Through the viewport, the Earth turned in its silent, cloud-marbled arc, unchanged by the fire that had rolled above it. The station's artificial intelligence core hummed a low, steady chord, its consciousness a quiet sentinel.
Not a bad legacy for a family business.
Outside, the 12 stations held their positions, cyan lights blinking the rhythm of an unbroken watch. In the barren moon cell, Kale watched a small monitor that displayed constant news of Earth's victory. The ticker scrolled. Earth's grid, a legal fortress. Images of the 12 platforms cycled, pristine and unharmed. The silent stations hung in orbit, their cyan lights a quiet mockery of the armada that had been.
They didn't fight a war. They simply drew up a better contract.
The pen had been mightier than the sword, the claws deadlier than the cannon. He closed his 4 eyes and saw the flicker again. The millijoule spike he had mocked, that spike, dismissed as static, had been the pen stroke that scuttled his command. The cell light dimmed to a warm, eternal twilight, and in the space above, the 12 platforms continued their silent patrol, proof that words could be the ultimate weapon. A strange peace settled in Kale's chest, defeat without dishonor, a salute to a foe who never fired an illegal round. On the hull of Platform 1, a bronze plaque caught the first light of dawn, dedicated to the unseen deterrence, 2284. For 90 years, the grid had circled Earth, invisible to those who did not know where to look. It asked nothing of the world below except that the world remember what it could do. The sun completed a full arc. Shadows grew long on the platform's hulls, but their watch never broke. A maintenance drone glided past a faded hull stencil. The old lie now a proud scar of survival. Night fell over the planet, and the 12 stations became a constellation of deliberate cyan. In the decades that followed, the grid never fired again. It never needed to. The threat was enough. The contract was the weapon. They remain, ready for the next 6 minutes. Far below the silent stations, in a sunlit classroom on Earth, a new generation gathered. A teacher held up a scale model of a defense platform and said, "The most important battles are sometimes won without firing a shot." Children leaned forward, their eyes on the miniature cyan lights, as the teacher pointed to the sky. That is why we still have a grid. Not to fight, but to ensure no one ever tries. Small hands raised a cardboard platform, its cyan-painted tip catching the sunlight. A silent promise to maintain the watch. The lesson was not about weapons. It was about words, about contracts that protect without firing. Because sometimes, the best weapon is a well-worded contract. The bell rang, but the children lingered by the window, watching the real platforms drift overhead. They would grow up knowing that the grid was not a threat, but a promise kept, and that promise had already saved them once. A lesson etched in the silent guardians above. Dawn broke over Earth's blue limb, gilding the gunmetal hulls of the 12 stations. Their cyan lights dimmed in the growing daylight, but the hum remained, a low note that had never stopped, a hum that had been the planet's constant companion for generations. And on this morning, A quiet message rippled through every screen, unannounced but familiar. It was not a threat, just a reminder of the contract that had ended in Armada. Read the contract. The words hung there, stark and absolute. The grid's hum deepening like the breath of a slumbering giant. A single, resonant chord from the stations, a bass note that vibrated through the void. Then the hum fell silent, as if the grid itself was holding its breath. The words dissolved, leaving only the watchful platforms and the quiet of space, the promise unspoken. The camera drifted over a field of shattered Veldari dreadnoughts, their dark hulls torn like foil, red emergency lights flickering among the wreckage. Frozen bodies tumbled in the silent void, crew members who never reached their targets. Among the debris, the 29 retreat vectors were now cold data points in the eternal black. The Galactic Concordium acknowledges no wrongdoing by Earth. The verdict hung in the emptiness, as final and absolute as the vacuum. The debris field stretched for millions of kilometers, a graveyard of ambition. A faint echo of the transmission repeated, "Read the contract." The wreckage drifted on, a monument to the power of a well-placed clause. A lone escape pod, its beacon silent, spun in the endless night, fade to black. The grid's hum a final, fading note.